Hello, everybody. Welcome to Two Goals Podcast. I'm Katia,
I'm Maria Laura.
and today we're joined by our first guest, our fellow colleague alumni from the Football Business Academy, Arianna Criscione. Arianna plays professionally for Paris Saint-Germain and works in the sponsoring and women's business development of the club. Hello, Arianna. First of all, congratulations on the renewal of your contract with PSG until 2021. One more year living the dream, working on and off the field for this great club. So this dream started somewhere in your life. Can you tell us where and how it all started?
Well, the dream to be a professional footballer was always my dream. Always my dream at the point that I started playing football, because I did not grow up in a football playing family by any means. In fact, my dad had two little girls and hoped for us to be ballerinas. So I completely went against that dream of his. But no, I know he's really proud of me now. So it's okay. Once I started playing football and I kind of got pretty good pretty quick at it, that it just put me on this trajectory, and I loved doing it, and I loved playing for better and better clubs. And then I got picked up on select teams and youth national teams and things like that. And it put me on a trajectory going forward with this objective that I knew I ultimately wanted to play professionally. I had hoped to play in a big tournament like the World Cup or the Olympics, but unfortunately that dream didn't come true. So, you shoot for the moon, but you land on the stars, and being able to sign again with PSG, as you guys both know now, has definitely landed on one of the big stars. So I'm okay with how it ended up.
You grew up in LA.
I
How
grew up in yeah.
how this influenced your pathway until now? Like LA is an open city. How this influenced your life?
Well, I think I grew up at an amazing moment in time. Part of me wishes I was a little younger now, just because of the professional leagues popping up and how much bigger football is getting. So I guess we'll go into more of my second career and how excited I am to kind of continue that because of this. But at the same time, I grew up in this period of time where I had women to look up to. I had the U.S. team, that 99 World Cup team. I was 14 at the time. I wanted 13 or 14, the 99 Olympic World Cup. So I was in the Rose Bowl. I got to participate in that game. I was sitting second row on the goal side that they did the penalty kicks. I was on the side where Brandy Chastain slid. I got to experience all these amazing things in history. And I was nobody knows I was there, but I was a part of it in my own little mind. And I think also because of this, though, I had these role models to look up to. I had parents that believed in me and totally believed that I could play football, and playing football was okay in my family. And no, they pushed me to succeed farther in football. And it was just this whole, really lucky on all these different parts that I know a lot of women don't have. I think that also helped me to succeed in this, because I had an older sister who's my biggest fan, and she always promoted me playing football. I did grow up in Southern California, so we have sunshiny days most of the time. Practice was rarely canceled because of rain, but if it does rain even a little, practice is always canceled. But this also gives us the ability to play football year round. We had soccer tournaments or the league almost every weekend. I think 90% of my weekends, there was a soccer game for sure, every year growing up as a kid. And this also kind of built my relationship with my parents, though. I can remember my car rides to practice with my dad every day. Yeah, almost every day I had one form of football practice or another. So these were also a bonding moment where we got to hang out and chat and discuss about school and other stuff. And every weekend, one of my parents was either with me or with my sister. She played soccer too. So we were always together on the weekends, and football kind of was the glue that kept us all together really strong. So I think it also affected my relationship in a really positive way with my family. And then it also kept me going and having a great support system in order to play professionally.
Okay, cool. Did you had one football hero that you can mention?
Well, I mean, that 99 World Cup team was kind of our heroes. Brandy Chastain, Mia Hamm, Julie Foudy, obviously Brianna Scurry is the goalkeeper on the team. We looked up to them. I remember when I was 16, I got selected to the regional team, which doesn't mean much to probably anybody listening who's not American, but it means the United States is split up into 4 parts, and they make a team for each part. And I made the team for that region. So out of 15 states, I was the best goalkeeper at my age. And with that team, we got to go to Italy to play games. And so because of this, though, our assistant coach actually was Jerry Smith, who's Brandy Chastain's husband. And at the time, it was like, oh my God, like you're Brandy Chastain. So we tried to talk to him just to talk to his wife, even though he has a whole plethora of awards himself and he's done amazing in football. But we just wanted to know about his wife. So I think that's kind of a funny memory or a hero to look up to. And then you're trying to get news about her. And then it was also really funny on that trip. Super random. You guys can totally cut this. But we're on this football trip going through Italy. We're young girls. You know, probably most of us are pretty tomboyish because we play sports. And he goes and buys these shoes because we'd have moments where you can go off shopping, you know? And we all got back on the bus and he was showing us these shoes that he bought for Brandy. And they were these high-heeled stilettos, like slinky little
very Italian fashion.
Very Italian, but also very like high and like sexy. I don't know. I don't really know how to say it, but like stringy. You know, it was just like string across the toes and all the way up the leg, all this stuff. And like all of us were like, oh my God, Brandy's gonna wear that? Like Brandy's gonna wear that. Like
when is she wearing
yeah,
it?
just like I mean she's on billboards or for Nike, you know, she wears sunscreen, she's like on the beach, but she wears stilettos. And it I don't know, I think it was for a lot of us this recognition of like, okay, cool, we can be badass on the field and then still wear shoes like this that our husbands buy. Okay, yeah, I'm in. Sign me up for that. So that was a pretty cool moment to see that.
It was a good image.
Yeah, it was really shocking at the time and surprising. Like, I don't know, you'd think he bought her cool trainers. That's what we bought, like little tennis shoes that we couldn't get in the United States. Like, I remember too, a couple years later, it was a really big thing to have gold in Europe. Like there was gold Pumas and gold Adidas and stuff like that. And that didn't exist in the US. So that was super cool. So my image would be more something like that, like still girly, but like tennis shoes. Nope. It was like these sexy stilettos. No, it was life-changing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like building your identity. That's really important. Like in this specific moment where you're trying to choose, do I have to be a tomboy all the time because I play football? Or maybe I can just be something else outside the field, right?
Absolutely. It was, and that's a really great way. It's truly what it was. It was like, cool, I can be tough and hard and, you know, my knees are going to rip open and I'm going to bleed and I can do all this stuff. But then once the game's over and we shower and we come out of the locker room, I can be as feminine as I want or not want, depending on the player. But you do have this opportunity where you can choose your own personal identity and which one you want to be. You're not stuck in this bubble of, okay, if I want to be the best football player, I have to stay like a tomboy, I have to dress like a boy, I have to like keep in this route, which is ironic because when I came to Europe the first time, I saw this image a lot. And it was kind of sad that women couldn't choose. There wasn't much of a choice. And the ones who came out of the locker room looking really feminine, like were made fun of or teased or like people talked behind them when it was just kind of messed up. And that was a moment that was for me, is like, well, Brandy can do it, I can do it. Like, I don't care what they do in Europe. Like, she won a World Cup. What if you guys won? Okay, yeah, that's
it's breaking stereotypes.
So returning a bit, Arianna, so you were mentioning the special system that you have in the US, which is really rare to try and explain, like these regionals, this sports college that, for example, in South America, we rarely have this at universities. So I was just wondering, when did you decide, or maybe you didn't even decide to go to college? I mean, maybe it was football that kind of drive you there. Like what was this moment? When did all started, like as a professional kind of?
Well, like thinking about university is kind of totally different from my professional career-ish because just growing up with my parents, it wasn't a choice to go to university or not. That's just where you go after like high school. Like after you know, preschool, you go to kindergarten, after kindergarten, grade school, high school, you go to university. Like that's what there wasn't a choice of if we were going, it was where. For my sister and I. So football was just a way that kind of helped financially because of a scholarship, but I knew I was going to go to university, and grades and education were really important in my house. So we had we're just, I don't know, competitive family. So you had to be top in your school and you had to be top on the field. Yeah. So even if I didn't play football, I still would have probably gone to a good university. and gotten my education and everything like that. I was just lucky because football made it a little easier to get into any university I wanted, and helped in that way. But yeah, so it wasn't much of a choice. It was just more once I got offers, which one I was going to choose. And then going professional was a little more difficult because in the United States, a league didn't exist when I graduated. There had been a league previously, and that had failed. And then right a year after, I want to say, I finished school or two, the new league had come into play, which made it a little more complicated to come back. I kind of already started going my way in Europe and things like that. And it was complicated coming overseas, actually.
So just to be clear, you need to go to and play soccer, as you call it in the US. You need to play soccer during college, and then you can have the possibility to become professional. Is that the way it is?
You mean like now or then, or because you don't have to, you don't have to go to university to play professional whatsoever. I mean, even then, I could have stopped after high school and tried to come to Europe or South America or something. 15 years ago, now we're really aging me. There wasn't really many very professional leagues for women to go into, even in Europe. Technically, even when I went to Italy for my first 5 years, we weren't technically professional. And even today, Italian women's soccer is not professional.
Yes.
On a technical standpoint, it's not. You can argue that, though, even you guys taking the FBA class, if you make enough money that lets you live on how much money you make, you are technically professional, but under like Italian law, it's not professional. So that makes everything a little more complicated. So no, so I mean, technically I could have like gone straight over there after high school where my parents would have totally killed me and like bat me across the head. They've never like been anything against football, but if I wouldn't have finished my education, both of them would have been really upset. So that's just a personal thing within my family that like you get an education and going to university is really important. But for other people, you don't have to. And now within the US League, you don't have to. People are going straight to the league.
Okay, well, now that you make this clear, just curious outside the sportive part, was it hard to keep up like the typical college lifestyle? Like, did you have attend to parties or you was just focusing on staying sportive?
I mean, no. So that's obviously just a choice, and some people end up wanting to kind of more of that college life and not wanting to play the sport, so they stop the sport. For me, it wasn't so difficult. I didn't party that much in high school, so going into college, it's not like I wanted to party every night like some university students. When you're an athlete, you find a way, and athletic parties are pretty fun, to be honest with you, in college. You just don't do it all the time. You usually only do it one night a week, the night before your day off. So like our last games were on Sundays and we always had Monday off. So Sunday night was usually a party. Athletes. Obviously everybody has their own choices and their own ways of doing whatever they want. But honestly, being an athlete was pretty cool because that means you could show up to the party in your sweats and your hair like mine is right now on top of your head. And you're like, cool, I'm here. And otherwise it wasn't like Friday night, you have to get all dressed up. It was like,
wearing
roll
heels,
off
right.
the bus from your last game wearing your sweats and go hang out and dance with your friends. Now, being an athlete in college was great. I would totally recommend it. But yeah, and then obviously like you have to be smart. Some schools have rules. We had rules too. You have a 48-hour rule of drinking or something before games. Some people have dry seasons, so they sign a sheet saying they're not going to drink or party the whole season. It's personal choices. It's team choices. It's a lot of stuff. My teams were all pretty successful during the year, so I think our choices were good, but everybody does their own thing.
Going back to football in college and in the US, it's like Maria mentioned, it's different than the other parts of the world. Do you think this is one of the main reasons for the USA women's national team to be so successful today, to create this pathway for the girls until they are women?
One, I absolutely think Title IX has had a huge effect on most of our female sports in the United States, allowing you to go to university and get that education and play at such a high level, because university football is a really high level. And it's not just the level on the field, but it's also everything that comes with that. Because we're an athletic sport, we also get all the benefits that the men have. So we have the same training center, we have the same gym, we have the same kind of doctors and physical therapists, we have equipment, like similar equipment, if not better. because of Title IX, usually the women's soccer team balances out like the football team because we're a pretty big team in like NBA or there's multiple women's teams. So we would get more gear than our men's teams. Like we had so much more clothes than they did. We had like 4 warm-ups and like so much practice, so much stuff, which is amazing. Loved it. Super cool. But I think that totally helps the women's side progress and continue because you were playing until you were 22 years old at a really high level. And even like years ago playing university, it's almost being professional. You have training that you have to go to. You have to hold yourself accountable. You have to get stuff done. And it's absolutely beneficial to the women. Now having a league is obviously better because then even after like you finish university, you can keep going because there was a while when players were coming abroad, more Americans were abroad or internationally playing. But I definitely think university has had a huge effect promoting women's football in the United States for sure.
Moving abroad, it was your own choice or you had some offer to move to Europe?
No, I did it all. I got myself a second passport. I contacted lots of clubs. For the first team, the first time I went over, it was like from an intermediary, who helped me find a team in Sweden. But then from Sweden, I knew I always had wanted to play in Italy for whatever reason because of my heritage and just thinking Italy is the greatest place for football. I ended up emailing all the clubs in the top division asking if I could go on trials. I spent my own money to fly over to Italy to trial with some of those clubs. And then once I actually got contract offers, then I chose one. But no, at that like time, I did it all.
Okay, so when you went to Sweden, and that time Sweden was one of the ex-libris of women's football, let's say in that way, what were the differences that you found there in a social part and also football part?
Well, culturally, Sweden is a lot different than the United States, substantially different. So it's just a different world, learning how to navigate their social system. And from the football, it was just different too, coming from university that we have a culture of being in the gym a lot more. You were in the weight room 2 or 3 times and lifting like quote unquote heavy. That in football in Europe, it's not as much. I think it's becoming more predominant here, but for years of me playing, it wasn't that common to go into the weight room. So that was kind of a change for us. And also too, teams don't have that medical staff and the physical therapist that you had in college where every day before practice you could go into the physical therapy room and ice or heat or whatever it is you want to do or get a massage or I don't know. Now currently at PSG we do have this ability, which is amazing, but on most of the clubs that I've played for, that wasn't an option.
Have you ever when playing professionally, have you worked during the days you play?
Yeah.
There's good parts and there's for sure bad parts out of it, and everybody nowadays mentions it because women's football, there's this duality that you have to work and you have to train and play.
To maintain yourself. Yeah.
So when I worked though, like I lived in Italy for 5 years playing on a team, and I chose to start working. I kind of fell into it, and then I just kind of created my own like little English school. And I taught a lot of English privately, from adults to kids to small groups. And then I worked from some English schools. And I did that one because we have a lot of free time and I don't like being bored or not finding like I'm using my time wisely. So teaching was something that was cool and like it was enjoyable and interacting with new people. And it really helped me learn Italian because when I didn't know the vocabulary, I had to look up the Italian word to figure out how to tell them the English word. So it actually really helped me learn the language. And also with that, Italy had a lot of financial problems, so we weren't paid on time. So while the amount of money I technically made was absolutely enough to live on, it didn't come regularly. And at that time, I was not going to ask my parents to bail me out. I have a college degree and barely making any money living in Europe. Like teaching English was a way to consistently have income and have just money to live. So I did that I was there 5 years. I did it for 4.5 years, I'd say, teaching English. And then I taught English in a couple other places, but no, not so much jobs other places, to be honest. Always online doing something or trying to figure out something just not to be bored in.
just out of curiosity, since we're mentioning the importance of working, having a second job to support your football career, what was the case of your team players in Swedish, for example, in Sweden?
No, in Sweden, all the players either worked or went to school.
Okay, so it was like kind of mandatory for you to have a job, like an extra job.
So it wasn't mandatory. As a foreigner, you're usually paid enough, because also it's really difficult to get a job as a foreigner in a lot of countries, especially if you don't have a European passport. You really can't get a job. So usually foreigners are paid enough money in order to live, or all your expenses are covered. So they pay for your food. They either give you a credit card to go to the supermarket, or that's a sponsor, or you can go to a restaurant to eat. So that's like covering your food.
Okay.
And then they cover everything. So the money that they pay you, if they don't pay you very much, it's enough to like small things that you need in a daily life. So it's enough money. And that's what foreigners are usually in their contracts. Now contracts are much better and most foreigners are making like a decent living, but that's how it used to be quite often. And the other players weren't getting that, though. Obviously it depended on which player was on the team and things like that. But it could be you just get a bonus for winning the game, or you just have a small amount of money, or they just cover your gas money. So they had to work or play, not like, or they couldn't live at all, not just to balance soccer.
Right. Do you think, while understanding this is maybe when it all started, like this conscious about the hard time that women had in football, maybe? I mean, because I'm mentioning this because we know, as a colleague of yours from the FBA, that you're very active into discussing the state of women's football and women in football as well. So do you think like moving abroad helped you like grow this conscious about this?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think as Americans, when we think when you play professional, you make a lot of money, or even if you don't like make a lot of money, you totally make enough money to live, or you're making more per se than minimum wage. But that's not how it is in Europe. And that's still not how it is, to be honest. You keep saying like my teammates had. I play in a league right now that's still not professional. My club is professional and they do an amazing job of taking care of us. Other clubs in the league are professional and do amazing jobs taking care of their players. But more teams in my league are not professional than are. So there's still a lot of women that have to work all day long, 9 to 5, and then jump in their car, go to practice, train for 2 hours, shower, go home, eat dinner, and go straight to bed to do it all over the next day. There's also a lot of clubs that don't train 5 days a week. They only train 3 days a week. So this is not something that actually has changed that much. It's only given a few clubs the ability to actually make their players professional.
Do you think there is something, I mean, for you as a professional player, what do you think about playing against those teams that are not professional? Like, this changed something about you, like about you thinking on how to perform, or how's the performance of the league itself?
I mean, the league has a huge discrepancy, obviously, if you look at the tables and just the scores. So clearly there's a difference. Although, kind of ironically, one of those teams I think has quite a few professionals on their team. So I don't know why they're so low on the table, but that's a different story. Yeah, I mean, I think that absolutely makes a difference. It's the same kind of discussion. For women's football to grow, the product needs to be better. For the product to be better, more teams need to grow, not just individual teams, but the whole league needs to get better and become more competitive to play against each other, so that every game is an exciting match, not big blowouts that usually happen. If certain teams come to play the way they can and know how, they will and should kill other teams regularly. Not to say that those other teams don't have great players. And the great part about football, I think, and especially women's football, is most players who play are really passionate about the game, and that's why they play. So those lower teams within the league, if PSG doesn't come with their head on straight and ready to really play, those teams can beat us, or at least pull out a tie, because they are there to win. Like, they're 100%, every player on that field is passionate, and that's why they go to work or go to school or whatever it is all day, and then drive a while to get to practice day in and day out, because they love what they're doing. And so that's also a difficult thing. But on the other side, if we do come to play, we have the better players and the better club behind us that gives us other things. It's not just about individual players, but it is about, we have physical therapists, we have great coaches, many coaches in different positions, we have better facilities, better equipment. So all of this does change, like those games.
Well, that's really important. I mean, that you mentioned the importance of women actually, since they don't have the same maybe benefits as men playing football, but they are at least driven by the passion, and that's really important for you to touch upon this point. But before going into more of the role that that you're doing right now in PSG, I just, out of curiosity, and this is very important for us to understand, how did you ended up playing for the Italian national team? I mean, you are American. How this happened?
Well, I have two passports. Like I said, in order to play in Europe, I knew I needed a second passport, and so I got it. And when I got to Italy, I was invited into camp, and I talked to my friends and my family. And looking at the situation in the US, I did not think I would be called into camp to the US. So
Okay.
when Italy gave me the opportunity to play for a national team and to the possibility to play in big tournaments, I jumped at it. It's a great team, it's great players playing there, and it's a beautiful country. So why not? So for some people, and in some ways I totally get it, this is a taboo and touchy subject, but yeah.
You played for your Italian club for to Champions League, or it was for other club? What is the feeling of playing a Champions League game in the days that you play? Because now we know it's a different product a bit with the finals different than the men's, but what you have to say?
I mean, no, like since I've been playing Champions League, it's been Champions League. Before, I think it was the Women's Cup, but so for me, it's always been Champions League. It's always been the purple color with the stars and the same music, the same kind of build up, very specific. You have to warm up for a certain time. You have to be out the field for a certain time. So all those regulations have been exactly the same for the past 13 years. I think I've been playing Champions League. But it's amazing. I mean, Champions League is Champions League. Whether there's 1,000 fans, 500,000 fans in the stadium, when you're on the field and you know it's Champions League and that music's playing, it's just amazing. I have a lot of words usually, and I don't know how to explain that feeling. Honestly, it's Champions League, and like you're here, and like it's the shit. Like it's just really great.
Yeah. Are you excited for the new format? It will bring more competitivity for the teams.
In what way?
For example, you played Braga this year in the first round, let's say, and you smashed Braga 7-0, if I'm not wrong. And the second game, okay, was 0-0, but I think in a group phase, maybe it will bring a new more competitivity for you.
Possibly. There's still no, but not in a bad way. I mean, I still think there's the same thing that we discussed before, which happens in our league, which happens in Champions League. There's too much of a discrepancy against top teams that play in Champions League to lower teams. And you kind of see that in the men's game, kind of, but still, like, group stage of men's Champions League is a lot closer than you're going to see, I think, with the women's stages.
Moving on now for your current position and introducing the part that you had the guts to have a master degree. Mm-hmm. Do you think it's important for the players to start thinking about the future and in education, going through the educational part to get a better job and a better future when they finish their careers?
So I think education is important for everybody, just not if you're an athlete. Like, education is always a good thing. And it doesn't have to be a formal education per se, like going to a set university or paying a lot of money. There's a lot of ways nowadays that you can really get educated and educate yourself. There's online courses, just reading books, getting a mentor and kind of shadowing somebody and training. All these ways, in my opinion, are getting an education. And I think these are vital to every person. Education progresses society. It progresses you as a person. I see no downfall to education, but I think sometimes as athletes, we focus so much on our sport and we forget about everything else. For myself personally, I think it's really important for players to stay educated. I think it makes you a better player on the field. I think it helps you that when you're training for a couple hours, if something goes wrong, you now have an outlet because you have something else to do, something else to focus on, something else to think about, that you're not going to now focus on that mistake you made in practice for the rest of the day, not be able to sleep. For the rest of the night, you're thinking about it. and go to practice in a bad mood the next day or nervous because of the mistake. If you had 2 hours of training, it didn't go well, but now you have to go to class or you have to participate in something else or you're doing something else, you're able to shut football off, use your brain for something else, and then the next day you're refreshed to go to practice or your game or whatever it may be. I also think, and I think it's funny that it's not progressed more, a lot of people try to say you should focus on education or education also, because you never know when you're going to get injured or when your career is going to be over. No athlete wants to think about that. I think that's one of the dumbest things that we say, because you're not going to convince athletes to study because of this thing. One, most people think it never happens to them. And two, if you're thinking about an injury, you're going to get injured. So it's just a terrible thought process. I think it's more of the fact that athletes have a certain mentality and you're used to setting goals and hitting objectives and continuously working and striving for something better, that when your career is over, whether you're 20 or 30 or 45 or God knows 50 years old, you're not going to stop and just go sit on your couch for the rest of your life. Nobody wants to do that. Everybody's still going to want to change and have an objective and have goals and strive for something better. Just like when they were athletes, it's a different path and it's a different idea, but you're still going to want to think at the end of the day, when you lay your head down at night, that, okay, I accomplished something today and my life is still worth meaning and then I'm doing something and this is great. Education will give you this. So I think that's what we need to change the conversation and focus more on that no matter what, everybody's football career is going to end. It's literally impossible that you play football for the rest of your life. And an education will help you no matter what.
So since you are like this goal-oriented individual, when you enter the master's degree, the football master's degree, what kind of goal did you wanted to accomplish after it? I mean, like you have a purpose after receiving the degree?
I mean, my purpose was obviously to go into the football sector on the business side. When I went into the degree, I knew the things I liked in football, but I didn't know exactly which position I wanted to be in. There's so many positions within the football landscape that I think most people just don't even realize. Almost any career you have off the field, you can then convert that into the football. Everybody needs lawyers, doctors, marketing, economists, data analysts, like you name it, HR, it's in football. So if you want to stay in football, you don't really have to just be a player or just be a coach, which most people I think get wrong. And especially athletes, if they want to stay in the game, they don't have to become coaches after if that's not your calling. I knew that I wanted to go into something marketing and creative. And then once I finished at the FBA, I just kind of started networking and talking to a lot of people within football to kind of see what their job really entailed, because that's another thing, like what your title is and what you're actually doing are not necessarily different, but you don't always know what those two things are when you read a CV or when you go into something. And even within that, every club is different. Like different roles at different clubs mean different things or have a different name. So it can be a little confusing or scary, but I think that's also why it's really good to network and talk with people to understand, okay, at this club, this is what this role means. At this club, that role is something different.
I actually agree a lot on that, because it is so hard for people to actually understand what, like only through checking CVs or job descriptions, it's really hard to understand what actually those people are doing inside the industry. So just in simple words, now, could you please explain us what you do like right now, as what is the name of your position, like exactly your name, the name, and what kind of tasks do you normally perform daily?
I'm women's sponsorship manager, and I prospect market for which sponsors or which businesses we think would be interested to contact in order to partner and sponsor the women's side. I then contact and I set up meetings to then discuss with them. I present the women's team, and then hopefully we try to get some interesting relationships, deals, and activations going. I also try to contact the sponsors who are already connected with the women's team and try to help them activate to possibly give them ideas. I also work on other development projects. If I can somehow promote the women's game somewhere, somehow, I either connect it to somebody within the business who can do that, or I start to push it forward. That's kind of it on the business side.
On the business side, and you also play. So how do you manage your time between trainings, games, and the work office?
So I try to know my schedule ahead of time, which isn't always easy. So then I can organize. The hardest is actually just organizing meetings, because otherwise I don't have to be in the office. I can work on my computer from our training facility, or I can work from home, or I can go into my office too, but it's very versatile. They're very good about allowing me not to have to waste time driving back and forth. But scheduling meetings can be a little rough because sometimes practices get changed or other events that fall into being a football player come into play. But besides that, it's good. I've always been really active when I played, so I don't mind it. It's nice doing something else and really feel like I'm making a difference and trying to continue the game. So
Okay, so you're working with the sponsorship, and we know how this is important for the women's game right now. So can you tell us your opinion and how much this is valued for the game, or how much this is vital for the game to in some countries to survive and in other countries to go on?
I mean, sponsorship is obviously key to any sport and to not any business, because not all businesses need sponsorship, but sponsorship is clearly where the money, not all the money, because you still have broadcasting rights and you have like game day tickets and stuff. Now sponsorship is kind of going to become even more important if there's no game day money coming in. I think sponsorship though also holds another role, because it also proves the value of the product. A big name sponsor is investing their money. It's showing the public that this is a product that we should be paying attention to, that it's valuable, it's an asset, it's a good thing, inevitably. So I think that's key with sponsorships, which is why it's also key to have like good sponsorships and relationships with your sponsors, not just join with anybody for the money. You really need to have the same principles and background and make sure that everything aligns together. It's also important too, because activations are really important for the club and they're really important for that sponsor. And the better aligned the two entities are, the better those activations will be. Which is also why I think at the moment I'm really lucky that I'm playing and I'm working, because I know what's happening in the locker room and it means I can align those sponsorships better.
Now that you mentioned activation, I also saw another interview that you have before, and you were talking about the difference between the spectacles, in the US and in Europe, for example. Do you think that maybe this is something that you bring to this role, that you're thinking that maybe doing this kind of activations? I know that we don't know if we are going to have fans in the near future, but are you already thinking about that, like how this is going to change in professional women's football, like the activation between sponsorships and the fans, sponsors and the fans?
Kind of. I don't think the activations will change so much, just because in women's games right now we're trying to entice more fans to come. So our biggest profit isn't necessarily game day revenue. So I don't think that's actually going to change that much, at least not for my club. It's unfortunate. It's going to hurt us because we have amazing fans and things like that, and it's great for our sponsors to see our fans. But I think we'll be able to be creative and still give a lot to sponsors and keep them engaged in a different way. Yeah, I mean, all of this for everybody is just going to come down to creativity and how you can bring things together and still bring value to your sponsors. And we're lucky that we are a very valuable team.
Well, Arianna, thank you very much from this part. Now, we know that you're very active. You have been very active these days in your Instagram account. You have become like this
Why is
host.
Patty like have her fingers over her mouth, like getting all excited?
No.
Because now you're going to change. We're changing roles with you, because you have been a host of your own 20 questions and answers, and I will just ask like really 5 curious questions about you to get to know you better.
Okay.
They're like really quick, and you can answer whatever you want. There isn't like a right or wrong answer. So, do you have any lucky charm for match days?
No.
No. You don't believe in that?
Charm? No.
Okay. Is there a song that helps you set in the mood before a match?
No, I used to be a lot more superstitious and like have certain things that I had to do or in certain ways. And I had a playlist that I had like certain songs right before a game. Let me think of some songs off the top of my head. Like Linkin Park.
Right.
Choice.
Who else? Maybe some Queen thrown in there.
So definitely rock music.
Yeah. No, I need to get the beat going. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Favorite city in the world, maybe to live?
Rent's pretty cool, to be honest. It's a good city. I think every city though has its like magic charm to it, and there's always a great reason. I've traveled and lived everywhere that I'm cool, you know, just a few years in every city and just keep moving and experiencing new cities and new cultures. Obviously going back to California and like Laguna Beach is amazing and it feels like home, so that's always good. But I don't know, every city is beautiful. And, well, not every city, but most cities that I've been to and that I would like to go to are quite amazing and beautiful. So yeah, no, I'd love to go to Berlin is a cool city.
Yeah.
Rennes is a cool city. Paris is a gorgeous city, but I wouldn't want to live there forever. Lyon is a really cool city, actually. I probably shouldn't say that. South of France, like Capricorn, Biarritz, the West Coast. I'm a big fan of the West Coast. It's kind of like California. All those are great cities.
Yeah, you like the sea. Of course, you grew up with the sea in front of you,
Yeah.
right? Okay, name one or two goalkeepers that you admire.
I mean, I obviously admire Christiane Indler. She's amazing. I'm just gonna go with both the goalkeepers on our team, except Cash is not leaving, but Cash is also an amazing goalkeeper. And playing next to them and training with them, they both have a great work ethic. They both have a great work ethic, and they're great women. And it was honestly a pleasure to train with them every day because we all pushed each other, but it wasn't aggressive or mean or cruel. It was just pushing each other to be better, and it was always really positive. So honestly, both those women, two top goalkeepers.
And for our last question, to watch football, you prefer beer or wine?
Who drinks wine watching football?
Amazing answer.
Come on, beer brands, a sponsorship for Arianna now.
Well, I mean, technically, it's actually in France, it's illegal to have alcohol as a sponsor. So
Yeah, okay, without alcohol.
But I mean, wine has its place. So if you're a wine company and you want to sponsor women's football, I think you can totally do that because the game only might last 90 minutes and then you have a glass of wine. But like just drinking wine, watching a game seems strange to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know what though? Actually, this could be a great activation and great branding. So if anybody's listening, you want to work with me, we could probably do this. Creating a wine made for football games. So it was like cold and like, I don't know, just hit that.
Maybe like a small bottle. Yeah, like a small bottle, easy to carry around. Yeah.
Yeah, or cold. I feel like the thing is too, when you think of football, you think of like heat. You don't think of a freezing soccer game.
Right.
And like
Exactly.
cold beer. So I think you need a cold wine that like hit that spot. It's possible. It'd be great. It would be a great campaign, to be honest with you. But
the idea is out there. So if someone wants to have it, just talk to Arianna.
There you go.
So thank you, Arianna. And to finish the podcast, we want you to leave a message for the girls out there and the women out there that want to reach a position like you have today.
So I would say be stubborn. Set your eyes on something and don't let it go. No matter what people tell you, no matter who puts you down or why you can't do it, just prove them all wrong.
Well, thank you, Arianna. It was a great pleasure to have you here, to have you as our first guest in Two Goals podcast. And remember, everyone, this is a space for football. Feel free to join us on Twitter and Instagram with the name Two Goals Podcast. There you can share your opinion, ask questions to our guests, or as you can notice, we love having a nice beer or maybe a cup of wine, you don't know, and just join us. Not in season, but yeah, just join us and I hope that you enjoyed our content today.